It was a typical Friday evening. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling aimlessly through my phone while waiting for the delivery to arrive. The living room was dimly lit, and the soft hum of the TV filled the background. Ashley was in the kitchen preparing drinks for us, her laughter echoing back to me after some joke she cracked that I barely registered. I was comfortable, content even. Life was good, or at least I thought so. Her phone was on the coffee table, unlocked, face up. I don't know what compelled me to reach for it. It wasn't something I made a habit of, checking her phone. We trusted each other, or at least I thought we did. Maybe it was instinct, maybe some part of me knew even before I saw it that something was wrong. My thumb brushed the screen, and it lit up. A photo app was open. At first I just skimmed past the images, pictures of us, our friends, and snapshots from random moments. Then I saw it. I froze. My eyes locked onto the screen and my stomach turned in a way I'd never felt before. It was a picture of her, of Ashley, my wife, but she wasn't alone. She was kissing someone. No, not just someone, him, Sam, our friend Sam, the guy I'd known for years. The guy who'd sat at our dinner table, laughed at our jokes, and shared our memories. Sam is the one person I would have never suspected. My heart pounded so hard I could hear the blood rush in my ears. I stared at the image, trying to make sense of it, as if somehow the longer I looked, the clearer things would become. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe there was some innocent explanation. But no. The way their bodies leaned into each other, the way her hand rested on the back of his neck, it wasn't a joke. It was real. I felt a sharp, almost physical pain in my chest, as though something inside me had been ripped apart. My hand clenched around her phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. It was like the ground had opened up beneath me, leaving me dangling on the edge of a cliff, unsure if I'd fall or if I'd jump. I didn't know how long I sat there staring at that image, my mind spinning, my heart racing. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head. How long? How could she? Why him? Why now? But no answers came. Only a dull, suffocating weight pressed down on my chest, heavier with every passing second. I should have stormed into the kitchen right then and there, demanded an explanation, shouted, cried, anything. But I didn't. I just sat there, feeling a numbness spread through me like ice. Her voice pulled me back to reality. Kev, everything all right? I snapped the phone shut and set it back on the table, heart still racing, the image of her and Sam burning itself into my mind. I forced a smile, one that I'm sure didn't quite reach my eyes, and called back, yeah, fine, but it wasn't fine. It would never be fine again. Something had shattered, something that I couldn't glue back together. And as I sat there pretending everything was normal, I knew one thing for certain: I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet, no. I was going to make them both pay. The night after I saw the photo, sleep didn't come. I lay in bed next to Ashley, staring at the ceiling while she breathed softly, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. My mind wouldn't stop. It was like a loop, that one image replaying over and over, their lips touching, her hand on his neck. Every time I closed my eyes, it hit me again, like a punch to the gut. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. I'd seen friends go through it, read about it in books, watched it unfold on TV. But nothing prepared me for the sharp, searing pain that now settled in my chest. It was this tangled knot of emotions: anger, sadness, humiliation, disbelief. I couldn't separate one from the other. I loved her. I hated her. I wanted to scream at her, but at the same time, all I wanted was to pretend it hadn't happened, that the photo was some sick dream I could wake up from. How could she do this? After everything we'd been through, after all the promises we made, all the moments that were ours? And why him? Sam. The betrayal felt even deeper because it wasn't just her, it was him too. He'd been a friend, someone I trusted, someone I thought knew what loyalty meant. As I lay there, my thoughts spiraled. Every memory, every laugh, every touch between Ashley and me felt tainted now, like it had all been a lie. I started to question everything. Was she ever truly mine? Had there been signs I missed, moments where her love for me had wavered? Or was I just blind, wrapped up in my little world while she slipped away? The rage would flare up suddenly, like a flame licking the edges of my sanity. I could feel it coursing through me, tightening my fists, making me want to grab her, shake her, and demand answers. But then, just as quickly, it would subside, and I'd be left with this hollow, aching sadness, the kind that gnaws at you from the inside, making everything seem pointless. But as the hours ticked by and the first light of dawn started creeping through the blinds, one thought became clear: I couldn't confront her. Not yet. Yelling, screaming, it would feel good at the moment, sure. But what would it achieve? An argument, some hollow apologies, maybe even tears. But they'd be together still. Maybe they'd even twist the story, make me out to be the bad guy, irrational and emotional. No, that wouldn't be enough for me. I couldn't just let this pass with some cheap words and promises. I needed more. I needed to make them feel how I felt now, lost, betrayed, and broken. I needed to take back control, to act with a coldness that would cut deeper than any scream could. A plan began to form in my mind, something subtle, something they wouldn't see coming. I would destroy them slowly, piece by piece, without ever raising my voice. The trust was gone. Ashley and Sam had taken that from me, and I would never get it back. But what I still had was the power to act, to choose how this story would end. And in that moment, I knew I wouldn't just sit by and let this happen to me. I would become the author of their downfall. As Ashley stirred beside me, still lost in her dreams, I closed my eyes, my mind settling for the first time that night. It wasn't peace I felt, not even close, but it was something colder, sharper, determination. I wasn't going to lose. The following days were like walking through a haze. Everything felt off. Ashley went about her life as if nothing had changed, but every time she smiled at me, every casual touch, every word, it stung. It was like she was an actress, playing her part in a role I didn't even realize was fake, but I played along. I smiled when she smiled and laughed when she laughed. I even kissed her goodnight. It felt hollow and forced, but I needed to keep up the facade, for now. I watched her more closely now. I studied every move, every text message she sent, every time she mentioned Sam's name. It was surreal, knowing what I knew, and yet pretending nothing had changed. But as each day passed, I became more and more certain of one thing. I wasn't going to confront them head on. That would be too easy, too obvious. No, this betrayal deserved something different, something more calculated. I wanted to ruin what they had, not just expose them, but make them turn on each other, doubt each other, and destroy each other from the inside. And the more I thought about it, the clearer my plan became. It started with a simple thought. If I could make Ashley question Sam the way I questioned her, maybe I could drive a wedge between them. What if Sam wasn't the only one? What if she believed that he had been unfaithful to her? It was a twisted irony that appealed to me. They had destroyed my trust, now I would dismantle theirs. That's when the idea struck me. Letters. Falsified love letters, messages from someone who didn't exist but would become the source of their downfall. I would make Sam look like a cheater, the way he had made me feel. If Ashley believed Sam was involved with another woman, their affair wouldn't just be tainted, it would be poisoned. I let the thought sink in, a bitter smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Yes, this could work. If I played it right, I could slowly erode whatever they had, one fake letter at a time, until they didn't trust each other at all. The beauty of it was that neither of them would see it coming. They thought they were the ones pulling the strings, but soon enough I'd be the one in control. I started to map it out in my head. The letters couldn't be too obvious, or Ashley might get suspicious. They had to be subtle, enough to plant doubt but not so blatant that she would confront Sam immediately. No, I wanted this to be a slow burn. A love note slipped into his jacket pocket, another one was left in his car. A pattern would emerge, something Ashley couldn't ignore. I would be careful and meticulous. I would make the writing look as if it belonged to another woman, someone who was in love with Sam but discreet enough to hide it. The letters would hint at secret meetings, at stolen moments when Ashley wasn't around. Little by little her jealousy would grow. She would wonder who this mystery woman was, why Sam hadn't told her, why he had kept this part of his life hidden. And the best part? Even if Sam denied it, even if he swore up and down that he didn't know what she was talking about, the seed would already be planted. Doubt would take root in her mind, and nothing he said would ever fully erase it. By the time I was done, whatever trust they had would be nothing but ash. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. This wasn't how I imagined my life turning out, but now that I had a plan, the chaos inside me settled. It was as if the confusion and pain had found a focus, and for the first time since that night, I felt in control. They had started this game, but I would finish it. Quietly, methodically, and when the dust settled, I would be the only one left standing, sitting at my desk late at night with the only light coming from the dim glow of the lamp. I stared down at the blank sheet of paper in front of me. I had already gone over it in my head 100 times, crafting the perfect words, choosing the right tone, and imagining how it would sound coming from someone else. A woman, someone who was falling for Sam but too careful to let it show openly. It had to be just enough to catch Ashley's attention, to make her pause, to make her start questioning everything. I picked up the pen, my hand trembling slightly. I wasn't nervous, not exactly. It was more a strange thrill, a dark excitement at what I was about to set in motion. I knew once I started there would be no going back. Taking a deep breath, I put pen to paper. Sam? I can't stop thinking about you. I know we said we would keep our distance, but every time I see you, it gets harder to pretend like nothing's happening between us. I don't know how much longer I can keep this secret. I'm afraid someone will notice soon, but I also don't want to let go of what we have. You've made me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Maybe we should talk about this. I don't want to push you, but I need to know where we stand. Yours. A. I sat back and looked at the words. It was short and simple, but filled with just the right amount of ambiguity. Enough to make Ashley wonder who A was. Enough to make her suspicious without being too obvious. The mention of secrecy would fuel her jealousy, the suggestion that Sam had been hiding something from her all along. Satisfied, I folded the letter carefully, like it was something precious, and slipped it into a plain white envelope. I didn't write a name on it. The lack of formality would make it seem more personal, more intimate. This was the first step, and it had to be subtle. The rest would come later. The next part of my plan would require patience. I couldn't rush it, couldn't let my emotions drive me. I had to wait for the perfect opportunity to plant the letter where it would be found, but not too soon. I needed Ashley to stumble upon it by accident, to think she was uncovering a secret meant to be hidden. That opportunity came faster than I expected. A few days later, we were at a friend's house for a small gathering. Drinks were flowing, people were relaxed, and the mood was light. Ashley was laughing with some friends across the room, and Sam was standing by the bar, chatting casually with the group of people. Everyone was comfortable, unsuspecting. It was the perfect moment. I slipped the letter into my jacket pocket and made my way across the room, pretending to join the conversation near Sam. He was laughing, completely unaware of the dark plan unfolding just a few feet away. I waited for my chance, watching as he set his beer down on the counter and turned to grab something from his coat. In one swift, fluid movement, I leaned in as if to grab my drink, and slipped the letter into his coat pocket. It was almost too easy. The room was filled with chatter and laughter, and no one paid any attention to me. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral, acting as if nothing had happened. Sam had no idea what was now sitting in his coat, waiting to be discovered. As the night wore on, I watched Sam and Ashley interact, a subtle smile playing on my lips. They had no idea what I had just set in motion. Ashley leaned against him, smiling like nothing had changed, and Sam, oblivious, wrapped an arm around her waist. I wondered how long it would take. Would she find the letter tonight, or maybe tomorrow, when they got home and she helped him with his jacket? The thought of that moment, of her face when she saw the letter, was enough to keep me calm, even as I stood just a few feet away from them. It had begun, and with that single slip of paper, I had planted the first seed of doubt. All I had to do now was wait for it to grow. A few days passed, and I began to notice subtle shifts in the air between Sam and Ashley. Nothing too obvious, no arguments, no confrontations, but something was off. The way Sam carried himself, the way he glanced at her when he thought no one was watching. It was as if he was trying to act normal but couldn't quite pull it off. I could feel the tension building, even if they were still pretending everything was fine. It was at another casual get-together when I first saw the change. We were at a friend's house, a barbecue this time. People were scattered across the backyard, drinking, laughing, and playing music. Ashley was in her usual social mode, flitting between conversations, always the center of attention. But Sam was different. He stood near the grill, beer in hand, but he wasn't fully engaged in the conversation around him. I caught him looking at Ashley more than once, his eyes flicking back and forth between her and his thoughts, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. There was something in his posture, a slight stiffness that hadn't been there before. I watched him closely, pretending to be part of the group but only focused on Sam. It was subtle, but it was there, hesitation. He wasn't as relaxed around Ashley as he used to be. He wasn't touching her as often, wasn't leaning in with that easy confidence he used to have, and when she'd glance back at him, smile, or say something playful, his smile seemed forced. Like he was trying to convince himself everything was still okay. He hadn't mentioned the letter to her, that much was clear, but it was eating away at him, I could see it. The seed of doubt had been planted, and now it was growing, silently but steadily, turning over in his mind every time he looked at her. I wondered what he was thinking. Maybe he believed it was a mistake, some misunderstanding that would sort itself out. Or maybe, just maybe, he was starting to feel the pressure, wondering if Ashley would eventually find out about the letter. Would she start asking questions? Had she already noticed something? Sam wasn't stupid. He had to be aware that the letter could become a problem, but for now he was playing it safe, keeping quiet, hoping it would blow over. But his silence was costing him. He was second-guessing every word, every glance, and every casual touch. And Ashley, in her obliviousness, continued to act like nothing was wrong, only adding to the weight on Sam's shoulders. There was a moment that drove it home for me. I was standing near them, close enough to overhear but not close enough to be suspicious. Ashley had said something about a trip we were all supposed to take in a few weeks, a hiking trip with the same group of friends we always hung out with. Normally Sam would have jumped in, excited, ready to plan out the details, but this time his response was delayed. He blinked, stared at her for a beat too long, and then nodded absently. Ashley furrowed her brow. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Sam's smile was tight, his voice calm, but there was an edge to it. "Yeah, just thinking about work stuff." She didn't press, just gave him a playful punch on the arm and went back to her conversation, but I saw it. That flicker of doubt. He was slipping, losing the confidence he'd always had around her. And all because of a single letter. It was fascinating watching it unfold. He hadn't confronted her, hadn't even confronted himself fully, but the cracks were forming. The letter had done its job. It had planted the idea that something wasn't right, and now that idea was festering inside him. As I stood there watching them from the sidelines, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't the loud, triumphant victory I'd imagined when I first found out about their affair. It was quieter, more insidious. But it was there, a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. I had disrupted their world, and this was only the beginning. The first letter had worked better than I could have hoped. The cracks were there, small, almost invisible, but they were real. Sam was beginning to unravel, even if he didn't fully realize it yet. But I couldn't stop there. A single letter was just the start. If I wanted to truly break them, I had to push further and force Sam deeper into his paranoia. I needed to make him believe that his secret, his supposed affair, was spiraling out of control. The second letter had to be bolder and more personal. The first was subtle, vague enough to plant a seed of doubt, but this one needed to press harder. I wanted it to feel like a relationship on the verge of being exposed, something that was slipping beyond his control. The idea was to trap him. If he denied it, it would only make him look guiltier in Ashley's eyes. Late at night, I sat down again at my desk, pen in hand, thinking about how to craft the next note. This time, I needed the other woman to be more direct. She had to sound desperate, like she was tired of waiting for Sam to make a decision. That desperation would feed into Ashley's suspicions and make her wonder why Sam was keeping secrets. I began to write, carefully choosing my words. "Sam, I can't keep this quiet any longer. I know you've been trying to be careful, but I can't stand hiding my feelings anymore. It's getting harder to pretend like nothing's happening when I see you with her. We need to talk. I need to know if you feel the same way. This can't stay a secret forever. It's tearing me apart. If you don't want this anymore, tell me. But if you do, I need you to be honest with her. I can't keep waiting in the shadows. Not like this. Please don't ignore me. You know where to find me. Yours, A." The words were more forceful and more emotional this time. They carried a sense of urgency, as if this woman was growing tired of the secrecy and waiting for Sam to make a move. I knew that once Ashley saw this, her jealousy would start to boil over. She would begin to wonder who it was and why Sam hadn't mentioned anything. She would start connecting dots, even if those dots were fabricated. Satisfied with the letter, I folded it neatly and slipped it into another plain envelope, identical to the first. No return address, no name on the outside, just like before. It had to feel personal, like a secret Sam was desperate to hide. This time, though, I couldn't just slip it into his coat. I needed something bolder, a place where he couldn't help but find it. The mailbox. It was perfect. Impersonal enough that it could have come from anyone, yet intimate enough to make it clear that this wasn't some random letter. Sam would know it was meant for him, and once he read it, his world would start to tilt further off its axis. A couple of nights later, after another gathering with our friends, I took the opportunity to make my move. It was late and the street was quiet, the soft glow of the streetlights casting long shadows across the neighborhood. Ashley had already gone inside, and Sam was still in his car, rummaging through his phone for something. I stayed back, watching from a distance, waiting for the right moment. As soon as Sam stepped out of his car and walked toward his house, I moved quickly. I crossed the street in a few quiet strides, reaching into my jacket to pull out the letter. His mailbox was at the edge of the driveway, just within reach. With one swift motion, I slipped the envelope inside, making sure it nestled right at the top where he'd see it first thing in the morning. I didn't linger. I turned and walked away, my heart racing with a mix of adrenaline and anticipation. The second part of the plan was in place. Now it was only a matter of time before Sam found the letter, before he would be forced to react. The beauty of it was in the subtlety. Sam couldn't come clean to Ashley without looking guilty. He couldn't ignore the letters without letting the doubt eat away at him. Either way, the pressure would build, and the more he tried to hide, the closer he'd come to cracking. As I walked back home that night, the satisfaction returned. This wasn't about revenge in the way most people imagined it. There was no explosion, no dramatic confrontation. It was slow, methodical, like tightening a noose. And with each passing day, Sam would feel it pull tighter around his neck. He had no idea what was coming. It was late afternoon, and I was in the study, half-heartedly flipping through some documents when I heard Ashley's voice drift down the hallway. It wasn't her usual tone. There was something different, something sharper. I glanced at the clock. She wasn't supposed to be home for another hour, so her presence was unexpected. Curious, I edged closer to the door, careful not to make any noise. Her voice grew clearer as I stepped into the hallway. She was talking on the phone, and from the way she was pacing, her footsteps soft on the hardwood floor, it wasn't a casual conversation. I crept closer, listening intently. "Sam, I don't understand why you're being so defensive about this," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I found the letter in your jacket. How do you not know where it came from?" There it was. The second letter had done its job. I stayed hidden, leaning against the wall just out of sight, as Ashley continued to press Sam. There was a pause on her end, likely because Sam was scrambling to explain himself. I imagined the panic on his face, the confusion. He didn't know that I knew about them, and certainly didn't know I was orchestrating everything behind the scenes. He probably thought he was dealing with some bizarre coincidence. Ashley spoke again, her voice rising a bit. "No, Sam, this isn't some prank. Do you think I'm stupid? Who the hell is Why is she writing you these things?" I could almost hear Sam's stammering response through the phone, even though I wasn't close enough to catch his words. He was undoubtedly trying to calm her down, but it was clear Ashley wasn't buying any of it. "You need to stop lying to me," she snapped. "How can you not know who wrote that letter? It's not something that just appears out of nowhere." The argument was escalating, and I had to suppress the grin that threatened to spread across my face. Ashley was falling right into the trap. Her anger, her suspicion, it was all building up exactly as I had hoped. The cracks between them were widening, and there was nothing Sam could do to stop it. I heard Ashley sigh, a frustrated, tired sound as if she was reaching her breaking point. "I don't want to do this over the phone," she muttered. "We need to talk in person, tomorrow, and you better have an explanation." There was a pause, and then a sharp click as she ended the call. I stayed where I was, waiting until I heard Ashley head upstairs, her footsteps heavy with frustration. Once the coast was clear, I stepped back into the study, closing the door softly behind me. It was all falling into place. The time had come for the third letter. It had to be perfect, as it would serve as the final catalyst in unraveling Sam and Ashley's relationship. I spent hours crafting the letter, ensuring it carried the same tone of emotional desperation as the previous ones, but with an added urgency. This time, A was begging to meet Sam in person, claiming she could no longer endure the secrecy. Once I was satisfied with the letter, I slipped it into an envelope and carefully planned my next move. Knowing Ashley would be home that afternoon, I timed my visit perfectly. Under the guise of an errand, I made my way to their house and, using the opportunity of their absence, slipped the letter through their mail slot. The letter was now in their home, waiting to be discovered. The next time I saw Sam, he looked markedly different, tired and stressed, with dark circles under his eyes. I approached him with a friendly demeanor, my concern feigned but genuine enough to match his distress. "Hey Sam, you look like you've had a rough day. Everything all right?" Sam's response was subdued, his usual composure missing. "Oh hey Kevin, yeah, it's been something." I kept my tone neutral, trying to draw him out without prying too directly. "What happened? You seem really out of sorts." He avoided eye contact, staring into his coffee cup. "It's just been a tough day, some personal stuff." I noticed he didn't elaborate further, and I didn't press him. Instead, I took the opportunity to observe his demeanor closely. His agitation was palpable, and there was a sense of strained normalcy about him. I could almost visualize the confrontation he had faced at home. "Well, if you need to talk or anything, I'm here," I said, trying to sound as supportive as possible. Sam gave a tired nod, his expression one of weariness mixed with frustration. "Thanks, Kevin, I appreciate it." Our conversation remained casual, with Sam avoiding any details about his troubles. He didn't share specifics, but it was clear that the third letter had stirred up significant turmoil. The letter's impact was evident in the way Sam carried himself. His stress and fatigue spoke volumes. As I left, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. The third letter had done its job, creating a rift between Sam and Ashley that was evident even in the aftermath. I managed to push them further apart without directly involving myself in their conflict. The relationship was unraveling, and Sam was left to deal with the fallout. The extent of the confrontation was clear from his demeanor, but he remained tight-lipped, offering no details. The destruction of their trust was already underway, and the plan was unfolding precisely as I had intended. ND. Now it was time to observe the chaos unfold. I knew this would be the crucial moment when everything I'd set into motion would come to a head. I decided to take a step back and watch from a distance, ensuring that my presence remained hidden as the drama played out. That evening, I took up a position across the street from Sam and Ashley's house. From my vantage point, I could see the front windows clearly, and I waited with bated breath. The shadows grew long as the sun set, and soon the lights inside the house flickered on, casting a warm glow on the scene unfolding within. It wasn't long before I saw the signs of the confrontation. Ashley stormed into view, her face contorted with anger and hurt. The intensity of her emotions was palpable even from where I stood. I could see her gesticulating wildly, her voice rising in furious crescendos. She held the letter in her hand, waving it in front of Sam as she spoke. I couldn't hear the words from my position, but her body language told the story. She was accusing him of cheating, her gestures and expressions filled with the raw pain of betrayal. Sam's response was desperate, his hands raised in a pleading gesture. I could see him trying to calm her down, his face a mask of confusion and frustration. He must have been arguing that he had no idea who the woman in the letter was, but from the way Ashley was reacting, it was clear that she wasn't convinced. The scene continued to escalate. Ashley's voice cut through the quiet evening air, sharp and accusing. Even from a distance it was clear that she was beyond reasoning, her trust shattered by the damning evidence of the letter. Sam's attempts to explain, to deny the accusations, were met with increasing fury and disbelief. I watched as the argument reached a peak. Ashley, her face streaked with tears, made a decision that was evident in her body language. The finality of her actions was unmistakable. As she drove away, I stayed hidden, ensuring my presence remained undetected. The sight of her leaving was the culmination of the plan I had orchestrated. Sam was left to face the reality of the situation, alone and grappling with the fallout. I turned and walked away, feeling a sense of satisfaction. The third letter had achieved its purpose, pushing Ashley to the breaking point and leading to the end of her relationship with Sam. The separation was now a reality, the result of the intricate web of deceit I had spun. I'd been savoring the success of my scheme from a distance, relishing the chaos I had orchestrated between Ashley and Sam. It felt almost satisfying to watch them struggle, their trust eroding under the weight of my carefully crafted deceit. I thought the plan had gone off without a hitch. But then things took an unexpected turn. It was a quiet evening when I first sensed something was amiss. I'd been keeping tabs on Ashley and Sam, watching their interactions with a mix of detachment and satisfaction. However, the normal tension that had once been there had begun to dissipate. I noticed a change in their demeanor, a kind of anxious anticipation that seemed out of place. That night I decided to check in on them, hoping to catch a glimpse of their reaction to the turmoil I had so carefully created. As I approached their street, I saw Ashley's car parked outside Sam's house. I paused for a moment, a sense of unease settling in. Something significant was happening. I took a position in the shadows, out of sight but within earshot. My heart raced with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. I watched as Ashley burst into the house, her anger palpable even from where I stood. Sam was nowhere to be seen at first, but I could hear their voices rising in the heated confrontation that followed. Ashley's words pierced through the night air. She was furious, her voice a sharp blade of accusation. "I found something, Sam. I know it was all a lie. Kevin was behind it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart pounded in my chest as Ashley continued, her tone filled with rage and betrayal. "He wrote all the letters. He set us up." I crouched low, trying to stay hidden, as the reality of the situation began to sink in. The evidence I had so carefully hidden, the notes, the drafts, had been discovered. Ashley had pieced it all together, and was now confronting Sam with the truth. I watched as Sam's reaction shifted from confusion to realization. He was beginning to understand the gravity of what had happened. The anger and hurt in his eyes were evident, and I could see the shock settling in as he processed the information. I could hear Sam's voice, tinged with disbelief. "Kevin? I never would have thought. Why would he do this?" The scene was playing out in a way I hadn't anticipated. My carefully crafted facade was crumbling. The realization that my manipulation had been uncovered was unsettling. I had thought I was in control, but now it was clear that the truth was about to come out. From my vantage point, I saw Ashley and Sam begin to piece together the implications of what they had discovered. their conversation turned to plans of confronting me. They were united by their shared anger and betrayal, and I knew they would seek me out soon. My pulse quickened as I realized the magnitude of my mistake. The scheme that had once seemed so flawless was unraveling before my eyes. I had underestimated the resolve of both Ashley and Sam. Their determination to uncover the truth had led them straight to me, and now, I was facing the fallout of my actions. As I slowly made my way back to my own home, the weight of my deception settled heavily on my shoulders. The consequences of my plan were becoming all too real. I had manipulated and betrayed people who had once been close to me, and now I was left to face the inevitable confrontation. The game was over, and the truth was out. I could only brace myself for the confrontation that was surely coming. The day after the confrontation between Ashley and Sam was a whirlwind of confusion and despair. I had braced myself for a showdown, expecting to face their anger and confrontation head-on, but when I arrived at my house, I found that the storm had already passed, and the wreckage was far greater than I had anticipated. I had hoped for a dramatic confrontation, a moment of intense revelation. Instead, what I found was a scene of quiet devastation. Ashley was packing up her belongings, her face a mask of defeat. Her usually sharp eyes were clouded with tears, and the once proud woman I had known was now a shadow of her former self. As I watched from a distance, I could see the traces of her anguish. The house, which had once been filled with their shared moments, was now a silent witness to their unraveling. Boxes were scattered about, filled with the remnants of a life that had been torn apart by my scheme. Ashley moved with mechanical precision, her actions devoid of the energy and purpose they once held. The once vibrant colors of her life had dimmed, replaced by the stark reality of her situation. I felt a pang of guilt, but I quickly pushed it aside. This was the price of revenge, and I had been willing to pay it. I couldn't shake the sense of disquiet as I continued to observe her. Each item she packed seemed to represent a piece of her shattered life. The photographs, the mementos, the shared memories, all were being packed away, leaving behind only an empty shell. Sam, too, had withdrawn into himself. The realization that I had been aware of his affair with Ashley, and had orchestrated their downfall, had left him feeling exposed and vulnerable. Our once friendly interactions were now tainted by his awareness of my betrayal. He avoided me entirely, unable to face the man who had so thoroughly manipulated him. I saw him from a distance a few times, moving through his days with a palpable sense of discomfort. The once casual conversations we had shared were now replaced by tense, strained interactions. Sam's shame was evident, and it was clear that the weight of the revelation was taking a toll on him. The finality of Ashley's departure was a bitter pill to swallow. She had left, her head bowed under the weight of her loss, and I was left alone in the house that now felt so empty. The echoes of their lives lingered, but they were hollow, devoid of the warmth and connection that had once filled the space. As the days passed, the reality of what I had done began to settle in. The thrill of executing my plan, of watching the destruction unfold, had faded. What remained was a profound sense of isolation. The very people I had sought to manipulate had been driven away, and the satisfaction of my revenge felt increasingly hollow. I found myself sitting alone in the quiet of the evening, the sun setting in the distance. The street outside was bathed in the soft glow of twilight, but the warmth of the days seemed to have evaporated. The once vibrant colors of the world now appeared muted, as if reflecting the emptiness that had settled within me. The consequences of my actions were clear. I had set out to destroy a relationship, to exact my revenge, but in doing so, I had also destroyed my connections. The people I had once considered friends were now distant, their lives upended by my deceit. I reflected on the nature of revenge, on the fleeting satisfaction it offered. It had been a powerful tool, a means of exerting control and delivering what I perceived as justice. But as I sat alone in the silence, the true cost of my actions became painfully evident. Revenge might provide a temporary sense of justice, a momentary thrill, but it left a void that nothing else could fill. I had achieved my goal, but at the expense of my happiness and connection. The price of my revenge had proven to be too high, and now, as the shadows lengthened, I was left to confront the emptiness of my own making. The finality of it all was sobering. The people I had manipulated were gone, their lives forever altered by my actions. And as I sat alone, I realized that the victory I had sought was not a victory at all. It was a reminder of the hollowness of revenge, and the profound emptiness that lay in the wake of my actions.